Family is a gift from God, a place where love takes root and faith grows stronger each day. It is within the family that we find comfort, support, and the deep connections that shape who we are. Through every joy and every challenge, we lean on one another, held together by love, grace, and shared faith. In moments of prayer, laughter, and even struggle, our hearts are reminded that God's presence lives within our homes and within each relationship we cherish. Family is more than blood. It is a bond of love, trust, and unwavering support. With faith at the center, these connections become our strength, our hope, and our lasting peace.
It was the summer of 1980s, between my junior and senior year in college. I'd driven all the way from New York down to our hometown in Zephyr Hills, Florida, to spend a couple weeks with my parents before I went to my summer assignment for training. And I thought I'd stop in and see my mom. She was a teacher, second grade teacher, at the Woodland Elementary School there in Zephyr Hills, Florida. Surprised her. She didn't expect me to be home that soon, and so I pulled in the parking lot there at the school, went up and knocked on her door, and you could do that back then. And she came to the door, and she said, "Scott, you're already back." I said, "Yeah, Mom, I'm home." And she gave me a hug, and I hugged her, and I said, "Mom, it's good to see you." But then as I stepped back and as Mom stepped back, I noticed something different about her. I noticed her hair was a lot more gray than the last time I remembered it. I saw wrinkles on her face I had never noticed before. And I saw that my mother was growing older. But you know, as a young man who was getting ready to go out and conquer the world, I never really thought about Mom and Dad growing older. I didn't think parents did that. I just sort of was naive, and I guess always thought that Mom would always be there for me forever. I didn't think it's possible that Mom and Dad could grow old. I didn't think it's possible that they could die. But now, 46 years later, more than I want to admit, I have come to appreciate and realize that what was happening to Mom and Dad back then is happening to me and to you today. We are all growing older. And I don't know of anyone, maybe I'm wrong here. Now, if you like growing older, raise your hand. But I don't know of anyone, I've yet to meet anyone, anywhere, at any place, who likes growing older. You know, because they have all these things about growing old jokes. You know, the joke like, you know you are old when you've been there and done that, but you don't remember what that was. Or you know you're old when almost everything hurts, and what does not hurt does not work. Or you know you are old when your birthday candles cost more than your cake. We're all growing older. And even though no one likes it, we're all growing older anyway. What is up with that? So for each of us this morning, no matter where you are at on the spectrum of aging and growing older, because some of us are just overachievers. We like to be ahead, always in first place. So we're growing older than other people here. But wherever you are at on the spectrum, today we're going to talk about something of how we can grow old gracefully. The year's around 700 BC when Isaiah the prophet of God speaks to the people of Israel in a time of great pain in their lives as they've been traumatized. They were beaten and bloodied by the Babylonians who came across their land and ravaged their cities and deported them to a foreign land. And earlier, Isaiah the prophet had predicted this would take place because the Israelites did not walk with God, had turned their backs on God. So the Babylonians came in, they were punished, they were deported, they're in pain, but now Isaiah brings a different word, a more powerful word, a word of hope, a word for tomorrow, a word of encouragement, a word that he gives to every person who's going through difficult times, and a word for every person who is growing older. And to grow gracefully, Isaiah writes, we must recognize that our false gods can't carry us. Our false gods cannot, will not be able to carry us through life. And he writes, he said, Baal bows down and Nebo stoops low. Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. The images that are cared about are burdensome, a burden for the weary. They stoop and bow down together, unable to rescue the burden. They themselves go off into captivity. All right, we read this. What in the world is Isaiah talking about? Okay, Baal was the national god of the Babylonians. He was the god who defeated Tiamat, the goddess of the sea, and now governed all things. He was the god of war, and he's often pictured in his chariot with his cape behind him with stars in, a scepter in his hand, and a pole or staff or club or spear as he's carrying and driving along. And Nebo, that was the son of Baal. He was connected with Mercury. He was the god of literature, of commerce, of creativity, of trade. And once a year, an annual celebration, the festival of Akatu, people from all over the land would come and meet in the city of Babylon. And as they were there gathered, they would take this cart pulled by 2 oxen, and they would place the idol of Baal on one side and the idol of Nebo on the other side. And they would take these huge idols and they would carry them through the streets of Babylon. And the people cheering and waving hysteria across the area until they came to the temple of Baal. And there the cart would come to a stop. And the king of the Babylonians would rise from his throne and he would bow down to these idols in this cart pulled by 2 oxen. And all the people in unison would bow down with him and worship, seeking the blessings of these 2 stone idols, hoping that to find favor with them. And we hear this, and it's almost surreal. How is this even possible that this nation would bow down to these idols? And Isaiah sarcastically points this out to them. He said, hey, stop, take a moment, think about this. Look what's going on here. These 2 idols can't do anything. In fact, they're so weak, even though they're supposed to be so great and so wonderful, they're so helpless that they have to in themselves be pulled along in a cart. And they're so heavy that they're burdened to the oxen that are pulling them. They can't even take care of themselves. They are burdened to the oxen. They can't do anything for anyone else. They're unable to rescue the burden. They themselves go off into captivity, and not too long thereafter, the Babylonians were conquered. But just like the Babylonians had their false gods of Baal and Nebo, we have false gods in our time, in our culture. Our own false gods of achievement, our false gods of wealth, our false gods of youthfulness. And these gods are burdensome to us, yet we seek to carry them with us through life. You know, and those who worship youth, I don't know of any nation that's ever worshiped youth more than our nation right now. And everybody tries to stay young. I try to stay young. I try to still fit in. I'm not doing it so well because I've noticed that the further I go down the road, the harder it is to stay useful. And those who are all about achievement, climbing the corporate ladder, making it to the top, when they finally get there and they retire, Because they're defined by what they've done, they get to retirement at that stage of life and they find out that their cart is empty, that their God has left them, that what they based their life on is empty and is no more. But growing old gracefully begins here with us having an honest reckoning, coming to terms. What are our false gods that we are carrying? What gods do we try to pull along behind us that are burdensome, that weigh us down? Or maybe better question, what gods are we willing to let go? False gods, so that we can be more open and be ready to accept what God has, the true God has for us. To grow old gracefully, recognize that our false gods can't carry us while remembering the true God who has. Do y'all like that picture? I like that picture. The background. I thought that was really cool. The true God who has carried us. And Isaiah writes, "Listen to me, O house of Jacob, all you who remain of the house of Israel. You whom I have upheld since you were conceived and have carried since your birth." Listen, Shema. We talked about that last week. Hear. And he's talking to his people. And he wants them to understand something. And he said, this is not the voice of the false gods who were pulled in on a cart to the temple of Baal. This is the voice of God who made the wood for the cart. This is the voice of God who created the oxen who were pulling the cart. This is the voice of the God who put down the road, earth, beneath the cart. This is the voice of God of all creation. And he says, listen, hear, my people, I have upheld you since you were conceived. You see, there was a time when the Israelites were not a thing. They did not exist. There was no such thing at a certain time in the history of the world. There's no such thing as an Israelite. All right, in the land at that time, there were Amorites and Canaanites and Amorites, but there were no Israelites. Until God stepped into our reality and called a man named Abraham and said, follow me. And then Abraham had a son Isaac, who was the second Israelite. Then Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. And God changed Jacob's name to Israel, and that was the third Israelite. Then Israel had 12 sons, and the nation of Israel was born. And God carried them the whole time. It's almost the imagery of a mother, maternal, caring for her child. You see, long before Israel could do anything for God, God was doing everything for Israel. And the same God, hear me, the same God who conceived Israel and carried Israel is the same God who has conceived you and has carried you since your birth. He says, listen, Scott, listen, I have upheld you since you were conceived and have carried you since your birth. Listen, Frank. Listen, Henry. Listen, Caitlin. Listen, Mary. I am the God who has conceived you and upheld you since you were born. Now, these are not the words of old age. This is the reality God is telling us since the very moment that we began to breathe. He pulls back the curtains of our lives and he says, look back on your life. Take a moment and see where I was with you there and there and there. That you may have been struggling, but I was there. Every moment you thought you were walking under your own strength, my arms were under you. Every moment you thought you could hold your life together, my hands were there holding it together for you. To grow old gracefully, recognize that our false gods that we make for ourselves cannot carry us. And remember the true God who has. But he then also says, rest in the loving God who will. And he says, even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he. You know, there are so many emotions associated with growing older. And I think as I look at my own life, a lot of this has to do with our sense of loss. That we lose, as we grow older, we lose our loved ones. We lose our health. We lose the good memories of when the children are little. We lose routine. We lose the community we grew up with. And we lose the good old days. And if we continue to dwell on and try to face the challenges of life by ourselves and try to power through and persevere, we will find out that we just can't do it by ourselves. We will lose our joy, our peace will be stolen from us, and instead of growing old gracefully, we'll grow old and grumpy. But notice what God does. Not only does God take responsibility for our past and being there for us in our past so that we can live in our present, he now says, I will take responsibility of your present so that one day I will take you home to be with me in your future for all eternity. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he. I am he who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. God says, he takes the responsibility for our lives. There's nothing, no me, my, or mine in this statement. That's God saying, hey, I got this. You just have to let me handle it for you. All of life is God's responsibility, not ours. Growing old gracefully is a life where every word and every deed and every action bears witness to the grace of God. And I'm here to tell you this morning, and listen, I'm here to tell you this morning, there's nothing more beautiful than grace that has grown old. Hear that. A grandmother and a granddaughter went to the zoo to spend a day together, and there was a face painter there at the zoo. And her granddaughter, she had all these little freckles on her face, just all little red freckles and red hair, and they were having such a great day. But they were waiting in line for the granddaughter to get her face painted with tiger paws. But a little boy in the line started making fun of her and said, man, there's no room on your face to paint anything, much less tiger paws. And the little girl started to cry. And the grandmother knelt down beside her and said, dear, I like freckles. And the granddaughter said, Grandma, I don't. And grandma said, well, when I was growing up, I wish I had as many freckles as you have, because that would have been so wonderful. And the little girl said, I don't like them. And grandma took her finger and traced it around the freckles on her face and said, dear, I think freckles are beautiful. What could be more pretty than freckles? And the little girl smiled and looked up at Grandma's face and said, wrinkles. Man. Growing old gracefully. Recognizing the false gods can't carry us. Remembering the true God who has. And resting in the loving God who will. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. And I will sustain you, and I, the Lord God, creator of the universe, I will rescue you and bring you home. Dear God, we're all at different stages in life, but the reality is that in each one of us, this is a sermon for all of us, because the reality of each one of us is that we are all growing older. Some of us are just further ahead. We're younger in life, and during those stages of life, we're busy putting our lives together. Then we come to a stage of life where we spend that time giving our lives away. Then we come to the end of our life where we give our death away. We create memories so that even after we pass from this earth, because we've grown old gracefully, even then those who have known us and have been loved by us will be encouraged and feel joy. But the only way we can grow old gracefully is because of your amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch, a human, a sinner, a broken person like me. And because of the grace given to us, and we remember that grace, we are able to grow gracefully and become like you, and love like you, and live like you, and be graceful to everyone around us. What's more beautiful than freckles? Wrinkles are.